This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Prime.
At the 2018 Auto Expo, and I have with me a special panel of guests to talk about specifically what's happening in the two-wheel space. So I'm going to introduce them from the far end: Arun Siddharth from TVS, Vimal Sumbly from Triumph, Malo Masson from Hero, and of course, I think now on this channel you know who he is, Prasanjeet Baruah from Facebook. So I'm going to come across to you first. I think you had a great first day. There's been a lot of talk about, is the Auto Expo as big as it used to be? Is it not? From a purely two-wheel perspective, there's always this talk about also how the car guys get all the attention, but not the two-wheeler space. This time, I don't think that's the case, right?
Yeah, I think very honestly, we've had a very good reception. We've had a lot of people having a lot of interaction with us on the models that we have presented, and honestly, we never had this issue of A versus B competition, but we really try to put out whatever's the best that we can put out and excite riders, because they're different from drivers, and we're appealing to riders. As long as they like what we've put together, I think that's what matters more.
Yeah, I'm sure the two gentlemen will echo that sentiment.
Yeah, I think it's very exciting as it is. Yesterday was a little down because you didn't have many so-called heads around. It's equally exciting, but there's some brands which are away, like Triumph is not there or other brands are not there. But I think it's important to showcase what you got to offer to the consumers till the next Auto Expo comes in, and it's the right platform to do so.
That also explains why you look so relaxed. You're the only one who's here as a visitor. But Malo, there's also so much sort of pressure in terms of what's happening in the industry right now. I mean, a lot of external pressures, a lot of policy-related pressures. All of that eventually, of course, starts to affect your bottom line. In that scenario, to put on this brave face and talk about future investments and R&D, that can't be easy because you have no idea what's around the corner.
Yeah, true. At the same time, what is best is when you have a clear roadmap from policy point of view. For me, the good thing from the government is after some hiccup on the BS3, BS4, we're quite clear to say, okay, the next big hurdle is going to be Bharat 6. And I think for that matter, once you have a clear roadmap and say, okay, it's going to happen, guys, get ready. We have no other option but to gear up. And for one thing that will be good is for once, we all, as let's say Indian OEM, are going to be ready to manufacture at the same level of emission regulation than the other market in the world, which means from the moment that we have a product, we can actually sell it in many places of the world without spending more time and more money. And that's, I think, the beauty of the Bharat 6 challenge.
And having access to new markets always helps hedge some of the troubles at home. So we've talked about, of course, how policy has to be clearer, and there are all these extraneous circumstances or pressures that the industry can't really control. But there are a lot of things that are also happening differently, and I want to straight away jump into that point with you. When it comes to approaching that consumer in this environment, going digital has just become, it's just the norm now almost, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a great time to be part of this industry, and we were having this conversation before we started, is how people are already so informed before they come in. In fact, we did this survey with Bain, where 70% of the people have already decided which brand they want to buy and what is the price point they're interested in. They're quite well informed. In the two-wheeler categories, 50% of them already know it. That's overall. 7 billion of the two-wheeler sales right now are already online influenced, and 2020 we see it being a 14 billion number. Huge number, and which obviously looks at rework of business models, and Vimal, you were talking about that before. So I think it's an interesting time to be there, and it's obviously forcing OEMs to rethink how they look at consumers, and it also helps that they're also scaling up the entire radar of the product cycle. So it's a kind of good mix of how they're moving up. Yep. It's not just basic level biking. I learned there's some 7 or 8 levels of different kind of bikes in my 5 minutes right now. I think that's very educated.
I'm guessing that came from Vimal.
It came from Vimal. A heated bike, etc. I think it's interesting stuff, and I think the consumers are more open to kind of choosing what they want.
A lot of our information goes to our consumer through platforms like Facebook as well. So does that allow you to also be leaner, or that much quicker in terms of being able to decide spends more judiciously, because some of the overheads go away when you're talking about digital straight away?
Yeah, I think, for example, the recent RR launch was 100% digital. We didn't spend one new rupee on anything which was offline. And the response that we got was tremendous. Like, we're pretty much in a very good spot. I think what is important about digital is that it's not competing with an offline model, and it's not competing with any other model. It's actually an addition, is what I feel. It's complementary. And I think the best thing comes in when you look at that and approach it that way. Yes, in the premium end of the business, you really can afford to do a digital first and go away with it. But there are other markets where you still need an offline model.
Sort of choosing where to put your money, literally. The point is that it hasn't replaced traditional media yet, digital, which means that you're doing that and this. It's then difficult to either look at an incremental spend sometimes as a brand, or then decide that, okay, from the traditional lot, you have to let something go.
True. The one thing at least which for me is interesting when you look at those way of reaching the customer is also sometimes the challenge is also linked to who you are dealing with. If you link with the younger audience, digital native, then you have no choice but to go digital. You can go as much as putting let's say dealership. Some of them won't just go there, so you have to have a different way to anchor them. And I think this is, for me, the challenge is we were saying it's to complement. Sometimes it's tactical because you want to be very precise and very quick. That's the beauty of being online. But sometimes for me, it's even like certain audience, you will only reach it in the future only if you think through a thorough marketing campaign, which is digital, which is experiential, yes. And that adds value, not just like it's on the mobile, doesn't work.
I think digital, the content is going to play a role. Second, credibility. When you put a content out, how credible is that content so that the guy buys on it? And third is, of course, your response time is quite quicker. You put an ad into a newspaper, you got to call a dealer and ask him how many inquiries did you get, because you don't have a system to check it. You have a digital, how many views, how many impressions, how much time did he come in from, did he come from mobile, did he come from tab?
Precise.
Amazing. Yeah. And it's like clinical, I believe as a motorcyclist, it should be precise because I'm an engineer. I don't want to bring that marketing jargons into it. It was good, it was bad. I would say it was 90 inquiries, 10 test drives, 5 retail. So I think that's what you can get through digital. A lot of credibility, a lot of numbers, and a lot of analysis.
And I love that part as well. But I have to ask you, PD, that this is all, of course, it's one thing to say that in general, India is getting more digital, and so more and more people are moving online. But the quicker adoption rates are coming by a lot of this now going from desktop to mobile, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'll just give you some stats, right? So after what happened last year in the telco industry, the average consumption of data has gone to 1.6 GB per user per month. It was 200 MB last year, same time.
In 1 year?
In 1 year, it's gone 8 times. Yeah, completely. So I think what's happened is everyone is now consuming content on their devices. So that is the new screen. Are they still consuming on television? Of course they are, but there's a multi-screening behavior. So I think what's happened, the consumer spending time on the screen. At Facebook, like we have 97% of our users are all on mobile. They aren't on desktop. So it's all moved there. And just to add to your point, Vimal, I think the beauty about the mobile piece is you go full funnel, right? Right from giving information, and their buyers are always out there in the market. It's not only when he walks into the showroom. So if I give him some information about, like you've excited me now, right? So that kind of information, you give it out on top funnel, move him right down the funnel. You run the full funnel approach and then finally close it at sale, which you talked about so brilliantly on tracking. I think that's what we are encouraging to work with marketers and solve for business problems rather than just do an advertising campaign. So right from getting the guy out on the 90-day window, getting him down the funnel and taking him down is where we're looking at. So that's playing a very big role, and we've had some really good success stories with a bunch of OEMs, and we just see how we can do this more with you all. So I think that's interesting.
So I'll ask all three of you this then. The composition of your marketing teams starts to change drastically, isn't it? The kind of people you hire, the kind of areas that you now emphasize or prioritize?
Not really. I think we have to ask whoever is marketeer is a marketeer, and I'm more from a product marketing side than a brand marketing side. But even a brand marketer his job is to understand the consumer's needs and fulfill them. So if that requires him to have reskilling or extra skilling, so to say, then I think that is the right approach rather than trying to take a different kind of giving it a different grease monkey, so to say, in our language. I think it's the same guy, but we have to help him train, we have to help him.
Everything has been said already. The key thing, as Vimal was saying, is really about the insight that you can get. Because you are accurate in your targeting. Two is about the tool. You've got a vast array of tools, and there is Facebook, but there are other players which reach a different audience in a different way. And I think this is also what is the beauty compared to the traditional that we have been using in the past. And I think it's just this complement and this level of insight that we can get that we're using. Then after, do agree for the same. You don't hire people based on an expertise that they would have in a typical, let's say, media platform. You just hire them based on the idea. And then out of them, they'll be clever enough to use which media will be the most efficient.